Hello everyone and welcome back to the Professional Diploma in Photoshop. Welcome to Lesson 3 of Module number 1. Thank you once again for joining me on your Professional Diploma in Photoshop. I hope you're all excited about Lesson number 3. We're going to dig into very powerful tools within Photoshop. We're going to have a look at how to use layers, and these really are going to change how you work within Photoshop going forward from here. But first of all, did you know a very famous fake and lots of fakes throughout the course of the history of photography? You may have come across these before, the Cottingley Fairies, which is a series of 5 photographs taken by sisters Elsie Wright and Frances Griffith between 1917 and 1920. And during the 80s, they finally admitted that these were faked photographs using cardboard cutout of fairies from popular children's books. There's still some people that believe that they are real. There's also lots of movies about these as well. There is one called Photographing Fairies, and I forget who it's directed by, but do have a look at that one. It's quite a good account of the Cottingley Fairies, and a nice story to go along with it too. But very relevant photograph to what we're covering in this lesson, which is layers. And essentially that is what Elsie Wright and Frances Griffith used when creating these photographs, was using layers. They were layering these cardboard cutouts over the negatives, over the photographs, to produce these series of images. So you're here with myself, William Eames, your course educator, as I said. So happy to have you back for lesson number 3. Really exciting lesson that we have lined up for you. Just a reminder, if you haven't downloaded the app already, do check it out. It's a great way to view the lessons. You've got reminders for when your next lesson is coming up, and of course you can go back over and review any lessons that you may have missed through the recordings button. And of course, as I always say in every single lesson, and it really is true, this is why we remind you in every single lesson, is to achieve your goals. The key is not to drop out. Just keep going. And as I've said so many times before, you will add more skills to your Photoshop abilities at the end of every single lesson. So we are... And of course, any questions that you have throughout the lesson, you can chat with Morpheus. Just pop in your questions there and he'll try to answer them to the best of his ability. But you can also put your questions to the classroom if you're not getting a satisfactory response. And please do remember to rate those responses so we can continually improve them. So indeed, a question for you, and pretty straightforward one: is this a real photo? So this is taken by Clint Davis, excellent photographer. But what do you think? Is this a real photograph? Have a close look at it and type your answers into Morpheus now. I mean, there's probably a little bit of a giveaway here in the fact that I'm even asking this question. But this is really fascinating, because this is a composite of photographs. So they are been separately photographed. First of all, we have the drivers, then we have the cars that are separately photographed, and they are put into a studio like background with some edits made, some reflections, some changes made to the overall levels. You can kind of see here though that, I mean, I would still call this a real photograph, in the sense that, you know, the lighting that's used to light the drivers, you know, professional lighting. Then you can see the setup here for lighting the cars, very complicated as well. So a lot of technical ability here on show from a photography perspective, and then it's all put together within Photoshop. And this is all done through the use of layers and layer masks, which is exactly what we are going to be having a look at within this lesson. So really cool to kind of get an insight into the process here that goes behind creating an image like this. Very fascinating indeed. So lesson number 3, all about layers and how we can combine multiple images together to create a composite as such. We're going to look at all the different types of layers. There's loads of different layer types. We touched on some of them in the last lesson when we had a look at adjustment layers, but we'll be digging into a lot more. And layers are the very core of image editing in Photoshop. And layers are simply images that are stacked on top of each other. If you think about, say, how designers used to work in the past, when they were still drawing, and indeed designers do still draw and sketch out, but you would use tracing paper to overlay different designs on top of your core design to try out different ideas to see how something else might look. And layers are kind of a similar idea to that, and they've been around for a long time, introduced in 1994. You can have over 8,000 layers on a single image. You'd never ever need that much, but you'd be surprised at how many layers you can include on a photograph and how quickly they stack up. And layers can be used for all different types of editing, as we saw with our adjustment layers. We can also use them for masking as well, and as I mentioned, we're going to be using them for everything as we continue on from this lesson. And as you can see here, we've got two images here. We've got a nice starry background, and we have an image here from Paris, and we have two of them combined here to create this image that typically you would be very difficult to capture otherwise because of the light pollution. You definitely wouldn't be able to see the night sky here. We were able to create this composite, and what's really good about this as well, it's actually also in the reflection of the water, so this is actually a very well done composite. So the layers panel, we're going to be having a look at it in depth. Lots to take in here, but we will be breaking it down as we move on through the lessons. We have our layers tab to begin with. We can change the properties of the layers using the filter option. We have our adjustment layers, as we spoke about in the previous lesson, how we can use that to edit the photographs non-destructively. We had a look at the toggle option, how we can switch on and off a layer. We'll have a look at how we can add new layers as well, and how we can unlock our background layer, and then we've lots of layer options available to us as well. And how layers work is that basically we would have different layers all stacked together. So here is kind of a side view, I suppose, as to what's going on. We have our bottom image here with the tornado, as you can see here in the background. Then we've got this image of a road here that we've set on top of it. We've removed the sky from it there to reveal the layer below. We've made some adjustments using an adjustment layer, and we've added a little bit of drama here by adding a vignette on a separate layer. And you're going to be able to create these types of photographs, these types of images by the end of this lesson. So let's get straight into it, and let's do some basic layer editing first of all to get familiar with them. So we'll dive straight into Photoshop, and we're going to pretty much continue where we left off in the last lesson. So here we have our image of the fox. We will come back to this at a later stage, but we're going to create a brand new document first of all. So we're going to open a new document. So we come up to File. We'll try and select it. There we go to New, and it'll open up our new document panel. Okay, so it's just being a little bit slow here. We've got our default sizes here. That's absolutely fine. I'm going to select one of these. Let's see, what will we go with? We'll look for, there should be an A4 sized one here somewhere. Let's go to Art and Illustration. Probably going to be easier there to find. Actually, a postcard will do nicely for us for what we're going to create in this particular lesson. So we've got 4 by 6 inches, a resolution of 300 pixels per inch. That's absolutely fine for now. We don't need to think about anything else at the moment. We want to go with, we'll go just with a simple white background for now here as well. So we simply create that. Okay. And I wanted to have it as a landscape, so I can actually just come up to image. I can go to image rotation, and I can just simply rotate it there 90 degrees clockwise, and now I have my landscape image. As you can see here, just a simple plain white background. We have our layers panel here, and there's not really much that we can do here for the moment. But let's open up some photographs that we want to add on to this. So what we're going to do here is we're going to make kind of a nice little postcard here for somebody special. Let's make it for our granny. So it's our granny's birthday. We want to send her a nice little postcard here with some photographs of her grandchildren. So I'm going to go to File, I'm going to go to Open, we're going to go into our Photoshop lessons. We've got lesson number 3 here, so we just click on that, and I've got a few images here that I'm going to bring in. Okay, so kind of photographs here of some children. It doesn't matter too much the content is here. Okay, so we'll just open up these photographs for now. So what we want to do here is we need to move these photographs from here into our document, and very, very simple to do. We just use our move tool. The shortcut here is V. Does exactly what it says on the tin. Bit of a cliche, but it simply moves objects. So if we click on our photograph, we can select our move tool. We just click and we drag, and we want to just click and drag and drop. Okay, and that actually fits in quite nicely there. So click and drag and drop, and as you can see here, we now have a brand new layer. We can switch that on, we can switch that off. Now we'll do a little bit more editing on that in just a moment. Let's come to our next image here. Again, just click and drag and drop. Okay, this one's a little bit larger, so we're going to have to change the size of this. Okay, and then we can do that by using our transform option, our transform tool. So to do that, we come up to Edit, and we scroll down. Oh, we go there again. We go to Edit. We've got this option here, Control plus T or Command plus T, which is our free transform option. I click that off, and as you can see here, then I can now click and drag the corners here, or drag the part of the image here. That's going to make it larger or smaller. Okay. So we're going to make that smaller. I'll just click and drag in the corner there. Okay, now if you want to change the kind of, I suppose, the perspective here on it, if you hold Shift and click and drag, you can kind of manipulate the shape a little bit more. We don't want to do that. I'll just press Control Z to take a step back and keep the actual ratio. Doing it there again. And we just make that to the size that we want. Now we'll do a little bit more with this in terms of the placement of these images now in a moment. But now you can see we have 2 layers. We'll just bring in the rest of those images here. Okay, click and drag here again. Control T, quick to selection on the transform. Okay, and we'll just size that again to the size that we want it. And then our final image here again. Now, of course, you can also crop these images before you click and drag them over if you like. Okay. Now, our 3rd layer has become large again, so we want to make sure we have our layer highlighted. Select layer 3 here again. We press Control T, and again, we'll just drag it down to the size that we wanted. I'm not sure why it changed there, but we'll just place it here for now. Click Enter, and there we go. We've clicked and dragged that to the right size, and we can just click on each layer. Now if you're having trouble selecting your layers by simply clicking on them, remember you can just also select them over here on the layers panel. And again, I'm just going to Control T on that, and we'll just make that down a little bit more in the size. Now that placement is okay. It's fine. It's not too thrilling in terms of how the placement goes. We can see everything though, that's important, but it's a little bit uninspired as it is from a kind of design perspective. We can do a lot more with this. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to quickly pop back to our slideshow, and I just want to briefly talk to you all about layer styles, or layer types. So we've got loads of different types of layers available to us. So first of all, we have what's called our pixel layer. This displays all pixelated data. So this is basically our image as we've just seen there. Our background is technically our pixel layer, but we have our different pixel layers on top of that, our different photographs. Then we have our adjustment layers, which we saw in the previous lesson, which allows us to apply changes if we want to change the image to black and white, if we want to brighten or darken an image, and so on. But then we can also add a shape layer. So we can also add a graphical shape to our images, which we are going to do with this little postcard now in just a moment. And then finally, we can also add text layers as well, which of course we're going to do with this image too, because we want to write a nice little message to our granny. Okay, so these are kind of the 4 primary types of layers that are available to us. And we have a huge amount of control over each of these layers. So we'll pop straight back into Photoshop and we'll start making some changes. Now, what I want to do here, first of all, is let's kind of offset these a little bit. Okay, so having them kind of just laid out in this way is a little bit uninspired. So I'm going to come back and I'm going to press Control T here again, and I'm going to just turn these layers a little bit. So if I hover over the corner, it might be a little bit tricky to see, but you can see how the arrows have now become this kind of corner shape, and I can click and drag, and I can just rotate those images ever so slightly, just to make them look a little bit different. So we want to have a collage kind of effect. I'll just undo that there again. Okay, so collage type effect there. Click enter on that. We'll do the same here again on this one. Control T. We'll just rotate that. We'll expand that out a little bit more. Rotate that ever so slightly. I'll just move this back into the corner. Again, with this one over here in the corner. Again, Control T. And we'll rotate that. It just makes it a little bit more fun. It makes it a little bit more like we've laid down these photographs a little bit randomly. Okay. So there we go. So it just offsets them a little bit, makes them a little more interesting. But there's even more we can do here as well. Okay, so we're going to add some effects to these photographs. Just we want to make them look like photographs that have actually been printed and have been laid down. So we want to add some strokes to these images. So if I select any of these photographs here, I can come up to my edit option here again, and I can add a stroke. And a stroke is basically like a border that we can add to an image. Okay, it's like a frame that we can add to any type of image here, not just photographs. We can choose the width and we can choose the color. We're going to select a white color here, so we just simply click white. We're going to expand the pixels out here as well. Let's just try a ratio of 10, or sorry, 5 I should say, and we can have it whether we want it on the inside, if you like, on the center, on the outside. We'll put it in the center. Everything else here is okay, and let's see what happens when I click that off. Not much. There you can see the stroke just about on the edges. That's fine. I want to make that larger. It should be a little bit larger. So again, we'll come up to our edit option. We'll come back to the stroke option, and let's make that a ratio of 10. Again, we'll click OK on that, and it makes it there a little bit easier to see. And we can apply that then to the other images here as well. So again, we go to edit, we go to stroke, we've got our 10. We can just click that there. Now, so we can just keep doing that to the rest of the photographs. It might be a little bit difficult to see on the ones that are behind here. So let's just add our stroke there on that one. We'll click OK on that. Now, you can't really see it on that image because of where it's placed, but it is also possible to move that image. We could also just click and drag and change where that's located. So all I'm doing there is moving the layers around. I think that looks maybe a little bit better, but then we're probably losing this image a little bit in the background. We can move that over there. Just to get the people there in that shot. So you can actually change the arrangement of your layers simply by clicking and dragging them. Okay, so you can play around with that as to what you think is the best way to display these photographs. That's quite nice. Yeah, I think that's going to work for us for now. Now let's do a little bit more with this. I want to give more of that illusion that they're kind of, I suppose, laid upon each other. So we can add a bit of effect here. We're going to add a little bit of a drop shadow. So again, what we want to do now in this instance, is we should come to layer. And when we go to layer, we have lots of options just specifically in regards to how we want our layers to look, how they want to appear, etc. We can create new layers here if we want. You know, you don't have to just use layer panel. We can add adjustment layers. We can also add fill layers. We'll have a look at those a little bit later. We can add layer masks. So it's just an alternative way of creating layers. But we're going to come to this one called layer style, and I'm going to choose this one. You can see here it actually also has a stroke here. We can also do it that way if we wish, but we're going to go with a drop shadow. So drop shadows, I click that off. It opens up another new panel. Lots of options here as well, and you can actually just cycle through all those different options here that we just had a look at there as well very quickly here. But we're going to just go with a normal blend mode for now. We'll increase the opacity so we can actually see this, the effect. I'm going to change that angle. We'll actually just leave the angle here for the moment. All of this stuff we'll leave exactly the way it is, and we'll just click OK and see what happens. Okay, so we can't really see too much of an impact there. You can just about see it there on the edge of the photo, and you can actually see it there quite difficult to see it just behind there as well. So what I want to do there is I want to change the angle of that. And if I click effects, you can see now on this, it now has effects and it has drop shadow. I can toggle that on and off here again by just clicking the eye icon there. But I want to click that, double click it, and it's going to bring up my options here again. So I can change that here again. So we want to click that. I'm going to go with this angle instead, going over that side. There you can see it there straight away now. It has changed. You can change the distance of it. You can change the spread. You can change the size. Here, there's loads of options there available. If we want to reduce that distance, we want to reduce the spread down a little bit as well. Maybe just keep adjusting that angle till we kind of find the right one. And you can also change the blend modes here as well if you'd like, but not going to have a huge impact here at this stage, but there's some kind of interesting options there as well that you can use. Okay, but we'll talk about those much more in detail. Blend modes are an entirely big subject on their own. That's fine for now. I don't want to spend too much time on that. We can just click OK on that. So we can apply that to all of the photographs here again. So we can just click off each one of them as we like. We go to layer, we go to our layer style, sorry, not our adjustment layers. We want to click drop shadow here again, move this over so we can actually see what we're doing. We don't need to make any changes there. I think that's good as is. And finally, I think we just do it on this final layer. We don't need to do it on that background layer. We click that there again, layer style, and drop shadow here again. Okay, and we might need to change the angle on this one a little bit, so we can put the angle down there, and you can see it's just coming there across the top. Okay, we don't need to have it too exaggerated. And there you can see it's added a bit more depth to our postcard. Okay, so it's looking really well now. I'm very happy and very pleased with how that looks. I might just move this over a little bit there more as well, just to fill up that space. So the next steps here now is we want to add a graphic layer, because we want to put a little heart here in this, and then we want to add some text then as well. Now, so the next thing we want to do here is we want to add a shape to this. We want to add a heart, and we're going to add some text here as well. So if I come over to my toolbar on the left hand side here, we have this custom shape tool. Now you can also right click on it. By default it's a rectangle tool, but you can choose different shapes there as well. We're going to go with this custom shape tool because when we select that, we actually have a variety of preset shapes available to us here already, and conveniently we also have a heart. So I like that heart. We'll stick with that for now. We also want that heart to be red, so we're going to choose our color swatch. As you can see here, it is now red. That is our foreground color. That's our fill. Now, we also want to make sure that it's a brand new layer. So when we've got it selected here, just the properties of the tool that we've selected, we can change here. We just wanted to create a new layer. We don't need to worry about these other types of shapes here for the moment. These will be used very much by graphic designers, but we're not going to do anything complicated. For now, we're just going to select a new layer. If I'm happy with that, I just click and drag, and I can create my brand new layer. And as you can see there, we have this new layer available to us. Okay, now of course you can also do this in a very straightforward other way, which is simply to create a brand new layer through your new layer option and draw a shape on it there as well. But this is perfectly fine. We'll use our move tool to kind of place this somewhere along the page here. A little bit tricky to find a good location for that. Let's just use our Control T as well, just to change the shape of that, the size of that a little bit. We'll just move that there somewhere in the corner. Okay, we'll just bring the edge of that out there a little bit as well. I think that's okay for now. Okay, so it's a bit of a flat looking heart. We can do a little bit more with this here as well. So we could also add a stroke to this if you like. We can do that for sure. Let's use our effects option here at the bottom instead. So with our layer selected, at the very bottom we have this option called add layer style. And here it's just basically a shortcut to choose those options that we've been adding so far. We'll add a stroke to this. We'll add a white stroke to this here. You can see it's very, very large in that instance. We don't want it to be that large. Sorry, we just click that OK, and then we want to reduce the size of that down a little bit. You could also reduce the opacity there of it a little bit as well, and I think that looks okay. Let's put that in the center there as well. There we go. Okay, so that looks, it just brings it out a little bit from the edge. We can also add another drop shadow here as well. Again, I'm not going to spend a huge amount of time on this. There we go. It just brings it out from the edge there a little bit. We'll reduce the opacity of that a little bit more and maybe reduce the distance of it there as well. Okay, so a nice heart there in the corner for our granny. And let's take the final step here and now add some text. Now, actually, just quickly looking at that again, I think it might be better. We've got a bit of empty space here in the middle, really. So I think that looks quite nice in the middle. Now, as I said, let's add some text here. So we'll create a brand new layer for this. And we can also do that through our shortcut options here at the bottom of the layers panel. We have this option called create new layer. You simply click that off and now we have another layer available to us. Cool. So we come over to our text option here, our type tool. We've our horizontal type tool, we've vertical type tool. You've got type masks as well, which we'll come to at a later stage. But let's just select our horizontal type tool for now. When you've selected that, make sure you've got your fonts and everything, all your ducks in a row here at the top. So we're going to want to select a white font for this. For now, we might change it. The font style you've got available here at the top, we'll just stick with Lato for now because there's just so many. You know, I don't want to spend too much time going through picking out the right one. And then you've got the size of the font here too. And from there we can start to make some changes afterwards. So let's click and drag. I'm going to put this text just below our heart. Okay, and when you click and drag, it opens the standard kind of lorem ipsum you know, font or text that you will typically see when you're inserting any type of text. So we're going to say, we love you, Granny. Okay, so it's a little bit over to the side there, so we can center that here. So if you're familiar with Word or any kind of document like that, kind of Word documents, anything like that, you should be very familiar with the types of tools that are available to you here. A little bit difficult to read that with against the photographs, so we could change the color of the font, or again, of course, you can add a stroke. So we'll do that here again. I don't want to be over reliant on our effects here. Okay, but we'll go to our effects. We have our layer selected. We go to our stroke. We're going to add a black stroke on this just to bring it out there. Again, you can see the impact it's having there. We'll reduce that down to 3 and it's in the center. Bring up the opacity of it and we click OK. Okay, so that makes it a lot easier to read. All right, so that's a very quick postcard. We've done quite a lot there. It might seem a little bit basic, but like think about what we've done here. We've introduced layers, we've added effects to those layers, a drop shadow, a stroke, we've made a shape, and we've also introduced a text layer as well. So quite a lot going on in all of that, and hopefully our granny would be very, very pleased to receive that as a postcard. Now, so let's move on to something a bit different and a little bit more complicated and a little bit more advanced. So bringing back up my PowerPoint presentation, let's talk all about masking. Okay, so masking is a very, very powerful way of editing through Photoshop. Let me ask you a question. What is the purpose of a mask? Okay, so think about this. What is the purpose of a mask? Why do we wear masks in real life? Well, and I mean, there's pretty much 2 purposes that I can see anyway. A mask is used to hide something. A mask is used to hide our faces, but we also take a mask off to reveal something as well. So, you know, we remove a mask and we're revealing ourselves too. Now, you can get quite deep and philosophical about all of that as well, if you like, or we can talk about it in a literal sense. A mask is designed to hide something, but when we take it off, we are revealing something as well. It is the exact same concept within Photoshop. Masking is basically explained as hiding pixels that we can just hide these pixels to let the image be seen below. So masks can be applied to every type of layer that we have looked at, and using layer masks of grey values assigns levels of transparencies to different layers. So in other words, you can make a layer more opaque by adding grey, and we use black and white to hide and reveal. This will make a little bit more sense when we put this into practice. So masking generally works as white to show and black to hide. And as you can see here, we could do some pretty incredible things with masking. This is a very quick one that I did where, we take a picture of a model, and behind it, using layers, I have, got this picture of an android, this render of an android, and I've used a mask here to slowly reveal a part of the image below to get this kind of idea, this concept that this is an android. Let's have a little bit of fun with this and do something like this ourselves. So we'll work on the exact image that I showed in the slideshow there. Now, just before we go any further, these are images from Shutterstock, so they are stock images, and unfortunately, due to the license, I cannot share these photographs with you because they're not for distribution purposes, because that would be breaking, I suppose, our contract with Shutterstock. But before the end of the lesson, I will show you free resources that you can use to download your own images, your own photographs that you can experiment and play around with as well. But let's start applying some masking to this image. So the first thing I'm going to do, I have my two images here. As you can see, they are quite different from each other. So what we want to do is, well, we want to crop them first of all, just to give them a similar size. So we're going to go with just a standard crop, 5 by 7 inches. I think that is fine. We'll bring it up to the shoulders, and I think that's okay. Very, very quick. Similarly here as well. Now, as you can see here, we'll undo that. As you can see here, we have this hand here as well, but that's okay because it's not going to be revealed in the photograph. So we have them cropped to a similar size. The next thing we want to do is we want to move one of the photographs onto the other. Okay, so I'm going to click and drag this one over onto our image of a cyborg, and as you can see here, it is now above the photograph. Now it's also lost the crop there as well because I haven't actually applied the crop there. That's okay. We can just click and drag it to the right size that it needs to be. And the best way to do this, to kind of line up and align our photographs, is to change the opacity on the layer that we have selected. So if we come to our layer option here, our layer panel, we can actually reduce the opacity. We can make it more opaque, in other words, more see-through, and we can then size it to the kind of size that we need to align these images a little bit easier. Now, that option to change the opacity is also an option that we are going to use very frequently, again, as we continue on throughout the course. So we want to just try to line this up as best as possible. Okay, so you want to use, I suppose, the eyes would be a good guide here. Okay, that's close. It's close enough. We might just go a little bit larger there on it. So it's never going to be 100% perfect. It can take a little bit tweaking to get right. I think that's pretty close. Okay, so we've also got the mouth there as well we need to consider. So again, we just keep going until we get it as close as possible. For the sake of time, I won't spend too much time in trying to get it aligned. But you can kind of see what's happening here already. It's pretty cool. So we click enter on that to apply that change. We can now increase our opacity up here again. Okay, so then what we want to do in this instance, so this is going to be very, very important, so pay close attention. Black reveals and white hides. Black reveals and white hides. So when we come over to our swatches here over in the bottom right or bottom left hand corner, you want to have that set to black and white. Your black should be set as the foreground, but you can also swap it around so that your white is set as the foreground if you like. But what we want to do here, we set black to the foreground color. Okay, and we are going to be using brushes here. Our brush tool is going to be what we use to reveal the image below. Before we do that, we need to add a mask. Okay, so when we have our layer selected, we come down to the option here just beside our effects called add layer mask, and we create our mask. As you can see, it's white, and white hides, black reveals. If our mask was black, so if we were to make a black mask here instead, it would reveal the image underneath, but it's white, so it hides it. Okay, now that'll make more sense now right now. So if you select our brush, okay, so we want to come up to our brush B option. Make sure you've got your properties kind of set here at the top. So we want a normal mode for now. That's absolutely fine. We'll go with a soft brush, soft edge brush, but you can change the size. You can change the hardness of it there if you like. You can change the opacity of this as well, which we will. We'll reduce the opacity down just to about 70%. So we can gradually build this up. Okay, we also want to change the size of that. You can use the bracket keys, the square bracket keys on your keyboard to quickly change the size of a brush. Let's see what happens when we start painting. So let's paint in, and that's pretty incredible already. So as I mentioned, black reveals. So when I paint that in, now what you can see here is a spot has appeared on our layer mask. Now it's kind of a grey because we haven't got the opacity turned up fully. If I turn up the opacity fully and I paint in here again, you can see it goes black. It reveals more of the image below. Now we could probably do with maybe just aligning this a little bit better. Okay, so let's come back to our brush. Sorry, that's a clone brush. We want the one above it, and we can just paint in here again. This, I'm sure you're seeing already, has just limitless possibilities. Really is incredibly powerful, and when we introduce things like selection tools, which we will indeed in the next lesson, we can get even more accurate with our selections in the parts of the image that we want to remove, that we want to reveal below. Okay, but think about what you can do with this already. So, you know, you could do something really, really cool. Like you could take a picture of one of your children and you could get like a superhero mask and you could turn them into a superhero, you know, which would be a very, very cool thing to do. So, you know, it's really, really incredible. Okay, so I've just made a slight mistake there. We'll just quickly undo that. Alright, so make sure when you're painting in that you have your layer mask selected. So what happened there is I had the layer below selected, and of course when I paint in, it just paints in black, which is not what I want. So we select our layer mask here again, and you can just kind of just paint in away as you wish, revealing the parts that you want to reveal and not revealing the parts that you don't want to reveal. Okay, so that's a very, very quick demonstration of layer masks. Really cool. As I said, kind of limitless possibilities. You can simply switch that around to white again, because I kind of want to bring some of that back there. I don't want to reveal too much of the hairline. You know, and we can get much more kind of complicated with this when we introduce blending modes and selection tools and everything else as well. But for now, that's a very, very quick demonstration just to give you an indication as to what you can do using layer masks. And we are really going to be using them continuing on in the next lesson. Now, of course, we can do a lot more with these than just kind of reveal, you know, another image below an image. We can do editing with these as well. So if I come back to our fox, okay, that we were working on in the last lesson, remember we were doing quite a bit of editing to this, I can actually use layer masks to remove parts of edits that I have made to a photograph. So let's say, just for a quick example, we select our hue and saturation here. So remember, we made some hue and saturation changes there. We changed the color. Okay, so I select my layer mask, I select my brush, and I can actually paint out. Now it might be a little bit subtle to see. Remember, we didn't do a drastic change, but you can actually paint out the parts of the hue and saturation change that you made. So let's say I bring this up here again, and let's make some change here. I just want to show you, exaggerate this. So we'll just change that color there. You can see I have all the other parts of the photograph. No changes being applied to it because that part has been masked out. All right, so we will just bring that back to 0 and we will undo all of that. So we'll just keep going back there for a second. Okay, so I want to do something a little bit more with this. I want to add a vignette, okay, to this image. So I'm going to create a brand new layer. I'm going to add a layer mask to it, okay? And selecting that mask, I'm going to add an adjustment to that. We're going to just change the brightness and contrast. It's actually, we've actually just created a new mask. We didn't need to add that layer, but it is one way to do it, so we can just delete that. Apply layer mask before removing. No, we don't want to apply that, so we just simply delete. We get rid of that, and we also get rid of the mask, or the layer there as well. So with our brightness and contrast layer selected, we can make our adjustments to this. Okay, so we're in the properties. Make sure we have the right thing selected. I'm going to reduce down the darkness here. I'm going to really bang up the contrast there at the edges there as well. And as you can see, it's kind of made the image very, very dark. What I'm going to do then is I'm going to reduce the opacity down a little bit here. We'll bring it down to around 70. And I'm going to then introduce my brush tool, highlight my mask, and I'm going to just paint out the adjustments where I want them to be painted out. So again, we could get much more accurate with this when we are using, say, selection tools, but it adds a nice bit of density to the image without affecting the adjustments that I have made to the fox. Okay, so again, just want to give you a kind of an indication as really to what you can do with this. And in fact, I'm going to make this brush very, very large just for a second here. I'm going to select my layer mask here again. I'm going to increase the opacity here as well to make it a bit darker. Okay, so bring it up. And we have our brightness. We want to make this really dark just for a second. Okay. And then I can just paint in there. And you can see it kind of adds a vignette then around the edges. So we have a dark edge there, a vignette on the edge, and not affecting the center part of the photograph. Okay, so you know we've really taken that picture very, very far now. Let's just collapse our group. That was our original. That's how it looks now. We've got a nice vignette around it. We've got a nice bit of kind of a spotlight effect on our fox, and we've all those other edits that we made in the last lesson as well. So layer masks, incredibly powerful. Okay, really, really cool. And as I said, we're only getting started with them. So just coming back to our slideshow, just before we finish out the lesson, there's just a couple of websites I want to show you that you can check out to get some free images for yourselves. And the first one of those being unsplash.com. Okay, so just 1 second there to bring up my window. Okay, so unsplash. Okay, so there we go. Just typing it there on another screen. So unsplash.com, click that off and you have loads and loads of photographs that you can kind of edit and play around with to begin with already. They're quite, I suppose, contemporary types of photographs here. You've got like cool wallpapers actually that you can use here as well. Textures and patterns that you could play with. Nature, architecture, loads of stuff there for you to play around with too. So that's one that you can check out. There's also pexels.com. Let's try that again. Pexels, free stock photographs there as well. Again, similar kind of idea to the Unsplash there as well. Loads and loads of kind of contemporary photographs that you can check out too. But there's also, I mean, if you just simply type in free vectors, you're going to get some free vectors that you can play around with too. So free vectors, I'm just typing it over here on another screen. Here we go, there's one there, freepic.com. Now with this, as you can see, loads and loads of different types of vectors that you can use. There is also kind of a premium one here as well. You can go photographs, there's just infinite amount of stuff. Let's just pick animals for a moment. Okay, there we go, eventually animals. So we click that off. Now you can see that's asking for a premium one, so there is premium ones on this, but you can find free ones as well. So if you go through it, you will find free ones too. These are designed you can see there has actually there is free options there, so you can actually filter it out to use free ones. There's a free one. So the green ones are free. When you click them off, it will say to you, now obviously you can pay per month. You don't need to do that. You can go free download. It says you must attribute the author. If you are doing this just for your own practice, obviously you're not going to need to attribute the author, but if you're going to post this on social media, Instagram, something like that, do attribute the author. Just copy the link there. Very, very easy to do, and you can also get a little how-to there as well. So loads of free resources that you can check out online. There is just so many different ones out there. Okay, so finishing out the lesson. So well done on completing lesson number 3. Let's have a look at what's coming up in lesson number 4. We're going to talk selection tools. We'll have a look at an overview of the different selection tools available to us. Quick selections, the quickest and the most versatile selection tool to use, and then we'll have a look at the magic wand tool and lots of other tools that we can use, and combining these with our layer masks and our adjustments that we've had a look at as well, you are going to see an acceleration in what you can do within Photoshop. I mean, having the ability to use layers, adjustments, quick masks and selections, these are the key really to start making really cool things within Photoshop. So your challenge for this lesson, take 2 images together. That should be TWO, 2 images, and combine them using layers and reveal one part of the image using a mask. So exactly what we did in this lesson. I want you to try that out at home. Get 2 images, doesn't matter what they are, they can be anything, something similar to what we did is probably the easiest thing to do, but you can do landscapes. You could combine 2 landscapes together if you wanted. The possibilities are endless. Just want you to use a layer mask. Okay, so we'll finish out the lesson there. Thank you so much for joining me, and as I always say at the end of every single lesson, don't drop out. You will achieve your goals. So until we chat in lesson number 4, enjoy using layer masks and look after yourselves. Bye bye.